career strategy in a coronavirus world. It has definitely changed our work lives in the last 6 months, whether that's working in a job you love or looking for a new job. It's really been quite a change for all of us. So want to be here today to address those changes and help you out in whatever phase of your career that you're in. Joining me today, I want to introduce Leanne Garms, who is my publisher and actually gave me the nudge to work on your career survival guide. So I will let her say hello real quick, and then we'll jump into the content and the questions.
Thank you, Christy, and thanks everybody for joining us for the launch of your Career Survival Guide and our special Career Club Q&A live with Christy. So we hope to provide some answers to some of the most pressing questions that you have about your job and career in this crazy time that we're living in. We were working on Christy's bigger book, Your Personal Career Coach, which releases next month. And we were working on that for about 2 years, and then COVID hit. So I just knew that Christy had a lot of valuable practical advice to share with everybody and everyone who is facing job loss, layoffs, and just in general, this new world of work that we have in the pandemic. So I asked her to quickly, nudged her to write a short ebook, and it quickly grew into what I'm really proud to share with you today. A 72-page career survival guide that answers your most pressing questions about how to survive and thrive in an economic crisis.
We promise to give you some good tips and some action items you can take away today that will help you in that situation. A couple of you are employed, but actively looking or getting nervous that you're going to have to be in that situation. So that's really helpful for us to know so that we can make sure you get the information you need. So thank you for sharing that.
Let's just jump right in. Christy, most people here know a little bit about you, but I'd like for you to give us some background on how you got here from marketing executive to the launch of the Career Survival Guide.
Sure. And a couple of you have heard this story, but I'll be brief. I worked my way up through the corporate ladder. I worked primarily with and for men, and so didn't have a mentor to help me in the situations that I was in as a woman dealing with being in executive meetings with men, hiring and firing and all that stuff. I kind of had to learn on the job, so didn't want to have other people have to go through that, and had this idea of being able to share some of what I learned to shorten the learning curve and make it easier for other people coming through behind me.
The Career Survival Guide releases on Tuesday, August 11th. You can find it for 99 cents right now on Amazon and all of your favorite online bookstores. If you would just share a little bit more about the story of how this book, Career Survival Guide, came about and what you hope readers will get from it.
Sure. So as Leanne said at the beginning, I've been working on Your Personal Career Coach with my dad for several years, and we were very excited to finally get it launched. And it was supposed to launch in July, and of course COVID hit in March and derailed everything, including the launch of our book. So while we were figuring out how to repivot that launch, it just seemed clear that there was more information that needed to be had immediately and as quickly as possible to get it to people who are in the situation that you all are in all of a sudden having to be looking for a job that you probably haven't had to do in a while. This quick, shorter ebook is the first step. Your Personal Career Coach will be the companion piece, which is a much more in-depth and goes into a lot more categories and things of dealing with a career. But this one is our quick hit to hopefully get you started now, getting your resume in shape, getting your cover letter written, networking, and doing informational interviews and the things that you can do right now to try and find a job in this environment. And one of the things Leanne said, right now it's at 99 cents, and that was really important to me. I wanted to make this accessible to everybody and know that most people are out of work who are going to be reading this. And so for the next week, you can get it for 99 cents so that you can put that advice to use and not have to break the bank.
And Christy, the guide, we broke it into 2 sections: how to get a job and survive, and how to keep a job and thrive. Because some people are still employed, but even if you are, things are just not what they used to be. But it looks like from our poll, we have most of the people here with us today are looking for a job. So with 30 million people out of work, how do you find a job? Can you share your top 3 tips or so?
Be happy to, Leanne. So really the things that I encourage people to do is, one, not rely solely on job boards. So yes, look at what's being posted on LinkedIn, Indeed, Glassdoor, whatever your job boards that you use. Look at them, see who's hiring. What's nice about those is it gives you a good understanding of what companies are hiring. And you can go after positions that you are qualified for, but you really need to work on finding opportunities that are not being posted. You can do that through informational interviews. You can do that by networking, by talking to people, by asking. Most jobs are filled having never been posted. So your job is to be a detective in finding those positions that, and sometimes they create a position for you once they hear about your background, or they didn't know that they were going to hire, but all of a sudden there's a fit. So those are the types of opportunities you need to be on the lookout for and create. Just be diligent and keep your spirits up and keep at it, because you just never know who knows somebody who's hiring and looking for somebody exactly with your background. So don't rely on job boards solely. If you do send your resume to a job board, this is my point number 2, I want you to not just send it to the job portal or the email address that's jobs at, or the Google upload, or what, LinkedIn, whatever they ask you to do. I want you to take the extra step and find somebody who can help you get your resume to that company. That's again where your network comes into handy, and it doesn't have to be somebody you know extremely well. They don't have to know the hiring manager. You don't, but anybody who can get that into the company, who can forward it to the hiring manager, you're gonna get to the, get an eyeball to look at it. And it's so important to have a human look at it, your resume and your cover letter, and not just go to the job black hole that I call it in both books. So it's just, you're being screened by a computer and you might never even make it to a human. If Bob in accounting walks it over and says, hey, I got this resume from somebody I know, will you take a look? You're going to actually get a look versus any other way. So one is look for opportunities that aren't being posted, be proactive in that, not to rely solely on job boards. 2 is when you do have a job board, get it into a human. And 3 is make sure you customize your cover letter and your resume for every position. And that's so important that it is tailored to the position that you are applying for, whether that's posted position or not posted position. But you don't want to just use a templated same old resume for every position. You need to be much more customized. And I think we're going to cover that a little bit later in more detail.
Yeah, and you actually have a special report on cover letters, right, Christy? Actually, we have an ebook that's not up yet, but it will be, right?
It is, and it's a free ebook. It's got a cover letter template. It's got opening lines that you can use to grab attention. It talks about why it's important to have a cover letter. I am a huge believer that you need a cover letter, and I know one of the gals on that signed up asked about this, so hopefully she's on right now, because the question was, are cover letters still a thing? And the answer is absolutely. I know some people will tell you that people don't read cover letters and therefore they're not important, but I will also say that to the people who do read cover letters, they're very important, and they can make the difference between getting an interview or not. So take the extra time, write a cover letter, customize the cover letter, and I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face for both the resume and the cover letter. Customize. You need to tailor it to the position. So read the job description, or understand, if you're not applying for a job that has a job description, but you know what a social media marketing manager, what the key responsibilities are, make sure those are in your cover letter and your resume. So if you have a job description, it's even better, because you've got those phrases and those keywords and those key job descriptions that they're looking for. So make sure that's what you're focusing on your cover letter, and you're putting in results. So it's not just so much that I know how to manage SEO, but I also, at my last job, I increased our ability to be found on Google.
Customize based on what the job is asking for. So pull out one of your accomplishments that relates to the job that they're looking for.
Absolutely. So it's not just regurgitating your job description, it's talking about the results and the impact and the achievements that you have in that job position. Right. So yes, long story short, cover letters are very important. I would take the extra time to write one when I'm applying for a job. And the other thing, especially if you're out of work right now, the cover letter does a nice job of helping to fill in the gaps. And it also answers what I call the head scratcher questions. So if you are applying for a job that's not in the area that you live, or it seems like if I look at your resume, I don't understand why you're applying for this job, but you can take that cover letter to say, I'm moving to Minneapolis next week to be closer to my family. That's why I'm applying for this position in Minneapolis, even though my address is in Los Angeles. Or I have not been in the insurance industry before, but I have done all the responsibilities in the electricity industry, and I can use those skills and they can, transfer, but look at my success in them. So that's where the cover letter can address so much more than the resume does, when it does not seem like at first glance you have a perfect fit for the position.
Right. So you have a lot of information on your website, and I would encourage you, everyone here, if you haven't already signed up for Christy's newsletter, do that, because we're going to be releasing those 2 free ebooks also. The other one is on informational interviews, which can be very, very helpful. But you also get a lot of questions, Christy, just from, because you have a blog and people are looking at your website. So what are the top questions that you're getting right now? What's most urgent to people in the time of COVID?
Yeah, and I'm hearing similar questions over and over again, and it's, how do I stand out? I'm submitting my resume. How do I get to the top of the list? And why aren't I getting interviews? And how do I find where the jobs are? So I'll help on those points again. How to stand out, and that's a lot of what we were just talking about. That is making sure you take the time to customize your resume and your cover letter and really focus on the keywords and the job responsibilities, and make sure that it is well represented on your cover letter and your resume. So if I take a quick glance, I can see that you have done exactly what I'm looking for and what I need you to do to be successful in my job, and that you've done it before. And that's where the results and the achievements come in. Because as a hiring manager, if I see that and I know, oh, Leanne was successful at that other job. Wow, look at the impact she made. She can do that for me. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm looking for as a hiring manager. I'm hiring probably because I'm overwhelmed. I've got too much on my plate. I maybe have been out of having help for a long period of time. I just need somebody to come in and hit the ground running. So that's what you want to make sure that your resume and your cover letter will show, is that, hey, I can do this job and I'm going to do it really well. And I've done it before and I'll do it again. And I'm going to make your life easier. And if you tell me that as a hiring manager, you are standing out. Numbers, hiring managers love numbers, whether that's dollars, percentages, time, whatever you can do to show that I've increased percentages, I've decreased percentages, I've increased dollars, I've saved time, customer success, people were happier, anything like that. And it doesn't even have to be specific to the industry. If you're very new, first job, and you don't have a lot of experience, you can still put in successes from internships. I was a waitress through college, and I had faster turnover in my section and happier customers. And that attitude and that ability to manage, that's going to translate into another job, even if I'm, in a corporate environment. So that comes with me, and that's important. So you can put those kinds of metrics and successes in as well to have the hiring manager take notice.
And Chrissy, you and I both have experience in the nonprofit industry and work with volunteers and so forth. So volunteer, you mentioned it briefly, volunteer work you can put on your resume too. And I used to, in my career, I would take volunteer positions to hone my skills in a particular area so that I would be, I could apply for different jobs. So that's something that you can do if you've been out of work for a while. Volunteer and use your skills as a volunteer. And I'm saying that selfishly because I'm on the board of a couple of nonprofits. We need volunteers. So, but I think that is, would you agree, a good way to highlight your skills and keep them polished as well.
Absolutely. And what you hit on, a couple things there, Leanne, that I want to jump onto is one, nonprofits are hurting in this environment as well. So they would love to have more help to try and continue their mission with fewer people donating or donating less. And what I like about volunteering for nonprofits are several things. One, it's a great networking opportunity because you're going to meet like-minded people who are very passionate and want to help. So they're going to want to help you as well. But nonprofits are also a great opportunity if you don't have to always have specifically what they're looking for to be able to do that role. So if you went into a nonprofit and said, I really want to hone and get better at social media marketing, can I volunteer for you? They are going to say, yes, bring it on. Come on. You don't have to go and say, I am the world's greatest social media marketing expert. And, let me come in and do this for you. So if you're trying to get a new skill, completely different, I would love to be in finance. Can I join your finance committee and help where I can and learn in the process? They're going to say yes. Or if you want to, as I said, get more experience in something that will make you more marketable, it's a great opportunity. And then do network while you're there. Ask people, hey, I'm doing this because I love the organization. I love what they're doing. I want to give back. And I'm hoping that I can take these skills and find a job. Would you be available to be a reference or to talk to somebody about what I've done here when that time comes? And that's a great way to have people know that you're looking and to keep an ear out for you by asking them to be a reference because they're now invested in, it's like, oh, I'm going to be a reference. Okay, well, I'm going to make sure that I know what she's doing and how she's worked. But I also now will want to see her succeed. So I'm going to keep an ear out for anything that might come her way. And it's a more subtle and a more comfortable way to ask people to let you know if they know of anything than to say, hey, I'm looking for work. Do you know anything? That's a more difficult question because it's like, well, I don't know anything now. What do I, how do I answer that? So
what you mentioned some really good ways to network. So obviously as you're volunteering, that's a great way to network and meet people that you wouldn't normally meet because they sit on the boards and they come from all different industries. But what are some of the other ways to find the jobs? I mean, we're not out and about, we're not going to happy hours and business meetings. So what tools do we have to actually find these positions?
Yeah, that's the challenge, right? So it is networking in a virtual world. So LinkedIn, if you're not on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do so. And when I say network and reach out to make connections, I don't mean just hit a bunch of people and get them into your network and not have a relationship. That's not really networking. That's just having a connection. So it's asking a question or sending an article. I think this could be interesting to you. I see that you are speaking, would love to learn more. How can I get on, watch your TED Talk the next time or something like that? And actually opening up a dialogue and make sure it's a two-way one. So you're not just asking for help, that you're offering something as well. And I know for a lot of people, they might be thinking, oh, I don't have time. I need to work more quickly. And I totally appreciate that and get that. But it is important to continue doing that now because that'll pay off later. And when I was talking earlier about that, get somebody to get your resume into the company, that's where those LinkedIn connections or any connection is great because you can use LinkedIn to say, well, Leanne knows somebody that works over there at Acme Company. So I can ask Leanne to help to get somebody, to send my resume to the person at Acme. And without LinkedIn, you don't often know that she might know somebody over there in that company. So, when I'm job hunting, that's where I'm spending a lot of time looking to see what the company is. And then who do I know that if they don't know somebody immediately, who might they know to help me out? So networking, uh, informational interviews. I love these on any given day, but right now I think it's even more important. And that is not going and asking somebody if they know any job opportunities. That is going to learn more about either an industry or a position or a company. And you pick the brain, the roles are flipped. You're now asking the questions and getting the information from your informational interview. A lot of times job opportunities come out of them, but you want to go in not expecting to pitch yourself and not putting your resume on their desk at the first moment, virtually, you sit down or anything like that. So it's really, you want to ask if, hey, I'm looking to go into this new industry. I'm looking to work here. Can I have 15 or 20 minutes of your time on a Zoom call? Would probably be ideal for you, but if they want to do a regular call or however they want to do it, you make it very convenient for them. And then ask your questions. And I have another guide that has a list of questions you can ask too. It makes this easy for you. And then what I like about informational interviews, in addition to the networking opportunities, is you might find out that this isn't the job that you thought it was going to be, or that's not the company you really want to be at, or, oh, you have to do that? And so you can save yourself a lot of pain from actually getting hired and then realizing, oh, you have to be up at 5 o'clock every morning. I'm not a morning person. Okay, let's figure out something else for the career. So information interviews, I encourage you all to start trying to schedule some of those. You can do them with people that you know or people that you don't. And because so many people are remote right now, they don't have commutes, they're not traveling, they have a little bit more time than they might if they were otherwise going to an office or on a plane all the time, to take a 15 or 20-minute call. And just like in anything, be respectful of the time. If you ask for 20 minutes, make sure you keep it at that. You follow up, you send a thank you note, you keep them involved. Don't just go on an informational interview and then never talk to them again or not have them hear from them. That's not networking at its best. And
right. So we have an ebook on informational interviews, a free one, coming out probably in the next month. And back to LinkedIn, Christy, it sounds like LinkedIn is really one of the primary tools you can use to connect with people. And we have a chapter on how, because I'm a real novice at LinkedIn, which you probably know because you've seen my profile. But we have a chapter in the survival guide, right, about how to improve your LinkedIn profile and what to put on there.
We do. And I would say the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to LinkedIn is they don't actually use the profile and fill it out completely to their advantage. They might either just have it replicate their resume or just fill out kind of the minimum. And you can put a lot more information, to give a lot more about your personality, about your success, about different roles, your volunteerism. So go in, if you haven't been in your LinkedIn profile in a while, I'd encourage you to go back in and then take a real good hard look at it and make sure you have a professional headshot. And this is one of my pet peeves. It should be just you. Even if your favorite picture is you and your bestie and you had to slice the bestie out, but it's so obvious that you did, like, take it again and just have it be of you in a professional environment, primarily your neck up, because that's what a headshot is. It's so they can see you. I don't like it when people just put their title in their headline. You got a lot more characters, so you can say, you know, data-driven marketing executive that gets results versus marketing manager, right? So you can write a real benefit statement that's really eye-catching for your headline. Go through your resume and update all your positions, but make sure they're up to date. Flesh them out a little bit more. You can spend more time on them. And then if you're in the media, if you've written blog posts, if you've been on a podcast, you can say there's a section where you can show where you've been featured and link to all those. You can add your volunteer area in a whole section. And then if you're not already asking for recommendations and referrals, you can reach out to some of your contacts and ask them to add those to your LinkedIn profile. And then when people go, they'll be able to see, oh, she's worked with all these people and they're singing their praises. So you want to have a really fleshed out profile on LinkedIn.
Right.
Because anybody that looks at your resume and they're interested, they're going to go look at your LinkedIn profile next.
Yeah. And you can put your projects up there too, right?
Yep.
So
Yep. There's a whole,
like I need to update all of the books that we published in the last couple of years and put yours primarily at the top. We'll be updating that soon. We do have a lot of questions, and thank you everybody for submitting your questions. What realistic tasks should I accomplish every day? This is from Emily, to make sure that I'm moving forward in my job hunt.
Okay. So Emily, I would say if you haven't already written your resume and gotten it cleaned up and up to date, you want to do that. And I know you're asking for daily, but let's make sure you have a good base for your resume. If your jobs are in the past, make sure that's written in past tense and not future tense and things like that. And then do the same thing with your cover letter. And you can reach out for my cover letter, my free cover letter guide if you need help with that. And then I would say you're going to spend time, you might want to look at the finance section of the news and see who's hiring, to get an idea of maybe where you can start looking at companies in your area that are within those industries. You could look at LinkedIn groups if you're not in any LinkedIn groups related to your career industry or job hunting. They have quite a few of those. You might want to look into that every day. Sometimes you get job leads there. Sometimes they give some good advice and feedback. Same thing on Facebook. So, and those are both private groups, so you're not blasting out to social media if you have questions or ever related to this. I would say you probably want to make a goal of reaching out to 2 new people a day, 2 or 3, to make a connection and just to start build your database and your network a little bit more. If you haven't already, if you want to volunteer, you can spend some time researching on what opportunities that might be and where you'd be interested in volunteering. And then your informational interviews. Do some research on who you might be interested in reaching out to for an informational interview. So if you're not, maybe one day do some time researching and the next day sending out your requests, and just try to keep, it can seem so overwhelming, and I know because I've been there. There's so many things you could be doing, and looking for a job is a full-time job. It takes a lot of work and a lot of effort, so I feel ya. So break it down into manageable to-do lists or task lists or checklists, whatever works for you on a daily basis, but just keep that momentum going. Don't let it overwhelm you to the point where you don't do anything. But if you can get 2 things done, then a day or towards a goal, then check those off, and then you're going to continue to make progress.
And you could read some material like the Career Survival Guide to make sure you're on track. Jennifer has a question. What are the best ways to find job openings besides job posting sites? And I'm curious also, what are the best job posting sites to look at?
Well, I would say you want to be looking at LinkedIn. Some people post on LinkedIn and they don't post anywhere else. Once you get to some of the other job boards, Indeed, Glassdoor, Monster, you might see some of the same positions there, and that's okay. But I would also, we've talked a little bit about trying to find opportunities where they're not already listed, and that's where your network comes in. That's where your informational interviews come in. You might be looking at, as I said, the finance section, either in your area. You might look at your hometown publications to see who's expanding or who's, they're building or they're adding to their warehouse or something like that. That's a good indication that somebody's growing and they're going to be needing help even if they're not posting jobs right now. So it's really a lot of just being creative and being persistent and not being afraid to ask for help. And I know that's one of the things that I've struggled with is, oh, I don't want to have to ask for help. People want to help. That's the thing I've learned, is that people want to be helpful. They want to support you. So if you can be super specific in what you need, I am going for an interview and I'm going to need tips on 3 things that I should make sure I'm talking about because you're in this industry and I want to make sure I hit the hot points. Or looking at researching these 3 companies, do you know anybody who has relationships with anybody in these 3 companies that can help me get my foot in the door? So ask for help and be specific. As I said before, it's very hard if you just say, I'm looking for work. Do you know anybody? Do you know anybody who really needs some marketing assistance, who can really drive more leads to their organization? Because that's what I do.
I have a question from Michelle. How do I explain why I stayed at my last company so long, 24 plus years? Is that a bad thing? I don't know. Today's market's about iterating and moving around. How do I overcome this potential roadblock? I think we're talking about ageism, perhaps. And she also shares a great volunteer resource, catchafire.org.
Oh, well, thank you.
How do you deal with the ageism or being in one place for so long?
Well, I'm assuming that there were a lot of benefits to you to stay for 24 years. So I don't think that that's anything that you should shy away from. It either provided stability for you and your family. You loved what you did. You loved your coworkers. You were given the opportunity to work up and get additional responsibilities and have bigger teams. Those are all positives. And I think that's how you position it. And you became an expert in this industry. You now feel like it's time to move on, learn more, take all that experience and put it in a new way for a different company. The thing about ageism, and sadly it is true, and it's there. So make sure your resume doesn't go back. I usually say to 2000, and if you've been there for more than 24 years, then it will obviously go back a little further than that. But if you have more than 20 years of work experience, you don't need to represent all of that on your resume. You don't have to go back to your very first job. So, and you don't, then don't. Mm-hmm. So just take it back to 2000, and then don't put your year of your graduation on your resume. And then really focus on your results and your experience. And again, you don't need to have a long list of what you are, your job descriptions, but really focused on what you achieved and what you made happen in those 24 years. And you know what? They kept you for 20 years. It's not like you just stayed, right? They valued you, so they wanted to keep you around. So obviously you made an impact on that company. And so that's the message that you want to focus on.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I made the choice to leave because I thought it was a good time before COVID, and here we are.
Yeah, sometimes you just, you made the best decision at the time, right? And
yeah, I don't regret it. I don't regret it at all, but I definitely didn't expect this. So it's a little bit of a pivot. And I enjoy these type of opportunities to listen to people like yourself to give us some insights and guidance. So thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it.
Lisa had a similar question about pivoting after 20 years in a job. I keep hearing women in their 50s have the most challenges to landing a job.
You can absolutely pivot. You're going to want to keep what you did and figure out a way to utilize that. It's a little harder, especially in this environment, to say, I was in marketing for 20 years and I'm going to be a sports producer now. That's my dream. It could very well be. It's just going to be harder to make that leap. It's a hard leap to make at any point. It's a harder leap right now because there are more candidates than jobs. So companies can pretty much get their pick. And if they've got a very specific idea of what they want, there's more people with that background now than there was 6 months ago, where they were going to be maybe a bit more flexible. So it's a little harder to do a complete overhaul, but you can definitely pivot. And by, whether it's within the same industry and maybe a different role, because you're an expert in a particular industry, but you maybe want to move more out of marketing and more into customer services or HR or something like that. Or you can take the skills that you have, 20 years of being a marketing expert or a finance expert, and then just take that into a new industry. I have said this multiple times on some of my podcasts that I've been on recently, that as a hiring manager, I would much rather have somebody who's got the experience that I'm looking for than being in the industry. I can teach you my industry. I can teach you nonprofits. I can teach you, background music services. That's a lot easier than for me to teach you how to be a great marketer or a great finance director or a great HR manager. So that's what I'm looking for, is have you done what I need, and then I can help you figure out how to do it for this company. So take those skills and look for maybe a different company, industry, something like that, that'll change things up. That'll be a much easier way for you to pivot your career.
Another one, Christy, was how do I handle the impending possibility of losing unemployment? Are there things that you can do to boost your profile, or just get ready for that? What do you do?
So first of all, I'm sorry to hear that's a potential for you. I guess that all of us should have that in our minds, but I applaud you for recognizing that could be happening and wanting to know what you can do now. So I would say a couple of things. If you really think that you're going to be laid off from a financial standpoint, make sure your finances are in order and you're not making any big purchases, or if you've got any recurring charges that are not necessary, it might be kind of a way to, now might be the time to start digging into that, so you're not panicking if and when the time comes. And that's something you're going to need to do. If you're not already networking and you're not already just like reaching out to people and participating in groups or industry chats and things like that, you might want to start raising your profile a little bit so you have an active network to lean on if and when you need it. You might want to start looking at if there's ways to augment your income. It's one of the chapters in your career survival guide is not having just one stream of income. So if anything were to get that one main job goes away, then maybe you have a side business, or you're tutoring, or you're a craft person and you can sell jewelry on Etsy, or teach music lessons, or whatever it is that you like to do that you can also have a little bit of income. Will make you feel a little bit more stable and confident if and when the time comes, that you're not in that desperate situation quite as much. I know often those side gigs aren't nearly what the salary is, but it is a nice way to at least have that, know you do have continuing income coming in. And it also helps, I think we saw this question come through is, can I put volunteer jobs on my resume? Can I put side gigs on my resume, internships and all that stuff? And I say, yes, absolutely. If you're volunteering and you're running or participating in the finance or the marketing, that's a job. You just might not be getting paid for it, but that's a job. Leanne knows it's a job. I know. We both been volunteer on nonprofits, and a lot of times it's extremely rewarding, so I highly recommend it, but it's definitely resume material. And some of these other side gigs are as well, because if you're tutoring, you are interacting with parents, you're interacting with students, you're managing projects, you're managing time, you're managing accounts payable. So those are all skills that make you marketable in other positions as well. So that's all stuff that can absolutely go on your resume.
I have a question about professional resume writers. I see the samples online and I get resume envy because they look so good, and the bullet points are so clean, and the language, but it's definitely not something that I would ever write from myself. Do companies appreciate the going above and beyond, or like it's expensive to hire somebody to help you write your resume or help you write a resume? So does it really make that impact if you already have a wide network of people who can look out for you? And then I also wanted to point out there is another great job site called Force Brands. and that covers the beverage industry, the beauty industry, food, and cannabis as well. So.
Oh, great. Thank you. We'll have to add that to my arsenal. I'll be able to recommend that to you.
And they're
Appreciate that.
fantastic team of people.
Oh, well, that's even better. So Alana, regarding the resume, I would say it's not something that everybody has to do to hire a resume writer. But if you don't feel like your resume is very well written, yes, then I would say that's a good investment, because that's really what's going to determine whether you make it through the first phase of screening. And if you never make it through the first phase, then you're never going to get an interview, and you're never going to have the opportunity to shine in other ways. So it might be a little bit pricey, but it's a good investment, because if you need that help, you can't get to the next level without it. So I would say that from a hiring manager's perspective, it's not somebody's going to look and go, ooh, this was professionally designed, therefore I really like them. It's more like, oh, I can see clearly what they've done, and all that great information really jumps out and makes it easy for me to digest and understand. That's where the investment will pay off, in your ability to really showcase what you've done.
And if I didn't make it clear, the personal career coach is a collection of stories from 25 different professionals on a lot of different topics that you're going to run into throughout your career. So there's sections on finding a job and resumes and all of these, a lot of the topics that we talked about today, but it's their personal experience that you can learn from. So you don't have to make the mistakes, and they give you some great tips. So there are resources there, and that's what Christy was referring to, is two of the contributors are resume writers who you'll find in the big book when it comes out September 15th.
So yes, don't be frightened that it's a 400-page book written only by me.
Actually, no. Don't read it from front to back. It's a resource for you.
Hello.
Hi, Heather.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Yeah.
Would be taking free certification courses help boost skills? Would that look good on your resume? Like from Google or Microsoft or Allison.com?
Absolutely. If it's something you're interested in and it's free, even better, then it's not going to hurt you. I can't say that that's going to make or break you and make the difference, but it will definitely not hurt you. And it can, one, as I think it's great because it will give you more education and make you an expert. And having that certification, for a lot of people, that is very much something they're looking for. So absolutely, I would say if you have the interest and the ability, then to do it.
Thank you very much.
I have you bring up a great thing. And if you are unemployed right now, and there are all sorts of great free or very low cost resources. And so I would explain to help you augment your skills and continuing your education. My library, with a library card, I can do audiobooks, I can rent textbooks and guides free of charge, and it's all online, so I don't even have to go to the library. There are all sorts of, you mentioned Google and other places have courses available right now. A lot of other organizations that typically charge larger fees for their educational courses are discounting them so that people can take advantage of them in this time of need. So there are a lot of resources available now at either free or at a lower cost that it's worth looking into. And especially if you want to go in a little bit of a direction, if you are wanting to pivot and you don't have the experience, you can educate yourself and get some great experience and add that to your resume to show initiative and show that you have the skills.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah. Christy, from Christopher, he wants to know, how do you broach the topic of remaining a remote worker after the crisis? I've heard a lot of people saying, I really like this and I would like to keep it this way. So how do you broach that?
Me too. So that's a great question, in that we don't know what the world's going to look like, right? At some point we're expected to, we think, go back to the office. But I would say that if you have proven to be successful at your job working remotely, then the discussion should be pretty straightforward and easy. And what I would say is make it not emotional, not, gee, I like it so much better, or it's so much, my wife's happier, or my dogs like it. Make it factual. So these were the results I had while I was working from home. Again, numbers, percentages, dollars, time. I actually gave the company more time because I wasn't spending that on my commute. So my 8-hour day became a 9-hour day or something. You don't need to, embellish it or anything like that, but just say I was more available to customers or prospects because my day could be longer. I wasn't, only able to do my job while I was in the office. So put together a very factual document. Doesn't have to be we're not talking about a whole presentation binder thing, but have your points so that when it comes time, you stay on track and say, here's why I was effective working from remotely. This is why I will continue to be, and this is why I think it would be beneficial for the company and myself to continue to do so. And they might say, great, you can do it. Or they might say, well, how about majority of the time you go work from home, but we still want to see your face, or will you come in for meetings or something, some hybrid approach. And I think that's where the world's going, is that we will be working remotely more often, but there will still be times where we come in as a company to congregate, to have brainstorming sessions, to have staff meetings, departmental meetings. But maybe that's just once a week, twice a week, once every other week. I don't know, every company is going to be different, but I do think that there will be a lot more people working remotely, working from home, and being successful. And the stats show that people are working longer and harder and are happier for the most part. So it can work.
Well, I'm sorry if we didn't get to your specific question, but I'm hoping that we can hold these periodically, Christy's Career Club chats. I know there are a lot of questions, and it's a really challenging time right now for everybody, and we want to be there to help.
And all of you guys, you're on my email list, so if you've got additional questions, if we didn't have time to answer all of them, I will make sure somehow we get in touch with you and answer them. If more ideas come in, let me know. Thank you all for joining me today. Thank you, Leanne. Thank you, Lianka. Hopefully we have helped you get some action items to take you on your way to get a step closer to getting a new job. I feel ya and want to support you, so continue to be sending out some information every week. And again, if you're interested in your career survival guide, it's on Amazon and all the book resellers, sellers, excuse me, for 99 cents up until next Friday. So grab that while you can, and it's at that price.
With your friends who need help as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon.